Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, welcome to How to Win at RPGs, an irregular series here at the Joy of Wargaming where we try to help you live your best tabletop RPG life. Don't play a whole lot of this these days, but played a bunch back in the days and hang out with some guys who are playing at a very high level. And I wanted to talk to you today about, as you might have guessed from the title card, some conventional wisdom. Although, conventional wisdom, as is so often the case, is conventionally wrong. And I want to solve a problem that you may have encountered and encourage you to think about fighters in a whole new way. We're going to change our lighting. There we go. Now, the problem that conventional wisdom outlines is this concept of linear fighters, exponential spellcasters. And we're going to illustrate this with a simple little XY chart. And this is your power level, and this is time, or you can think of it as your character's level, up 1 to 20, whatever that may be. Your fighters have a power level that starts somewhere around here, right? It's above 0. You have some ability to affect the game, and at first level, you may start here. I guess our axis should cross at 1, 2, 3, shouldn't it? And then you gain a level, and you get to be a little more powerful. And with each successive level, you get to be just a little bit more, and each step is about the size of the step before. Unfortunately for spellcasters, like magic users, and they're most commonly called glass cannons, because their power level starts somewhere below. And they grow in power very gradually. Now, in the terms of your fighter, the increase in power comes about because you get more hit points. You can stay in combat later. And for some reason, people typically think about combat most frequently when it comes to this situation. With each level, they get a little bonus. They can hit a little bit better. They get a little more gold. They get a little better AC. For wizards, their progression kind of looks like this. And somewhere about level 5 or 6, depending on how you play it, their power levels skyrocket. So eventually, when you get into this mid-level range, your wizard or your magic user overtakes the fighter, and because it's exponential, he just goes off to the races. By the time he gets to the level where he can cast Wish spell, he can just wish the fighter's dead, and there's really not a lot the fighter can do about that. This is your linear fighter exponential wizard problem. The solution to this is obvious. Do better as a wizard. Play smarter so that you can elevate your play above that of your bog standard fighter. How you do that, that's not the topic of today's video. That's a subject for another day. For today's video, what we're going to do is bump the fighter's power level at level 1, and we're going to make him go parallel so that he is far more powerful than wizards, at least until the late stage. Oh man, the birds are going off today. Sorry for the extra noise in the background, guys. This may not be the solution you're looking for, but it is a solution to your gaming woes. Let me explain. You're thinking about fighters all wrong. Before we go any further, I think I should point out that today's video is brought to you primarily by Brain Leakage. I can't remember the guy's name. He runs a blog called Brain Leakage, and that's his handle on Twitter. And he's been advocating for this for a long time. All I'm really doing is taking the concepts that he has inspired and putting them into video format. Highly encourage you, go take a look at his blog. You're going to be all this will be reinforced. This is also tweaked somewhat by guys who help me understand some of the intricacies of this process by which you power up your fighters even though you haven't leveled up your fighters. And that's Scholar at Arms and who's the other guy? Dracon Invictus, that's his handle over on Twitter, or Brigadine, you can look him up there. So thanks to those guys for helping me become a better player and understand this game a little bit more. You're probably thinking about your first level fighter as, he's a farm boy, fresh off the farm. He's got maybe an heirloom sword. No. Take a look at the title here. He's a veteran. Where do you think he gets his starting gold from? He gets between 50 to 200 gold pieces. Do you know that's 50 to 200 months worth of effort? This is 10 years of labor we're talking about. If he served in the Imperial forces as a heavy foot, he's only making 2 gold per month. If he's starting off with 120 gold pieces, that's 60 months. He just did a 5-year stint. Maybe he worked a couple of extra years. Maybe he's got 140. Okay, 7-year stint. He's a veteran. He is, let's take a look at our hireling table to find out exactly what he is. I just happen to know this is on page 31. What would a first level fighter be classed as in terms of hirelings? Well, is it 32? It's somewhere around here. There we go. Sergeant, actually, and I'm not going to belabor the point. I'm not going to waste a whole lot of time. But if we look here under Sergeant, where is Sergeant? No, I am going to belabor the point because I'm annoyed. Captain is 5th through 8th level, and the Sergeant, here we go, is first. All sergeants are first level fighters. Oh, but incapable of progressing further. Well, don't worry. This is the rules for, as it says at the top of the page, right there, hirelings. Your PC is no longer a hireling. He is not hired or working for someone else. He's working for himself. He's decided to cash in his chips, and he is going to embark on carving out a little domain of his own. Oh my goodness. Could this be domain play at first level? That's crazy talk. No, it's not. That's the way the game is designed. And let me tell you how we're going to start and why this focus on the rules as written can actually be a powerful force multiplier for your narratives. And the way you do this is by saying, let's take a look at starting equipment. Remember, we said that fighters start off with between 50 and 200 gold pieces. We're just going to use 120 as our starting gold, okay? And if we go to the equipment table, what we find over here is that chainmail costs 75 gold pieces. Oh, we could probably afford that. You know, and a sword is another, what, 5 to 10? But what if we decide instead of chainmail for 75 gold, we're going to start our fighter off with leather armor? Well, that means his starting armor class will drop by 2 or 3 points, doesn't it? Yeah, but look at that, man. We're saving 70 gold pieces. And why is that important? To understand that, we have to come back here to the DMG. And I don't know why I closed it, because that page 32 was very important. Okay, it's on page 29. I stand corrected. This table right here, expert hirelings monthly cost, is key. Look at this. We have 70 gold pieces in our budget. Remember, we didn't buy the chain. We went with leather. We've got 70 gold pieces. And look at this. If we want heavy footmen, they only cost 2 gold pieces a month. We can hire 35 of these guys. Now, every round, instead of rolling one attack roll, we can roll 36, us plus the 30. Whoa, time out. Slow down there, coachies. There's a couple of things you have to understand. The cost does not include arms and armor of soldiers, and these must be furnished. Okay, fair enough. So if we want to buy, now I'm just going to make the default assumption. We are going to hire these guys for a minimum stint of 3 months. That means for every one of these heavy footmen, we are going to have to pay 6 gold pieces out of our budget. Now, we could buy 10 of these guys. Oh, that's 60, but we still need to arm them. And we probably want to throw some armor on them as well. So looking back at our equipment chart, remember, leather armor is 5 gold pieces. And look how cheap you can get a spear for 1 gold piece. Wait, for a total of 11 gold. Wait, so it was 6 gold pieces to hire him, 5 for the armor, and 1. That's 12 gold pieces. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and buy him a cheap wooden shield too. So I now, for 13 gold pieces, can hire, well, if we divide 7 by 13, that means we can buy, you know what? Let's just give a nice round number. We're going to hire 5 of these guys. All right? There's another little wrinkle you need to be aware of. And this is why we're talking about fighters and not magic users. Now, a magic user can do this too. But instead of paying out 65 gold pieces for his 5 guys with a spear and leather armor, our magic user is going to have to pay a lot more. Because when you go look at the description of the expert hirelings, a sergeant can command up to 10 soldiers. There must be 1 sergeant minimum for every 10 regular soldiers, and there can be 1 per 5. Oh, wait a minute. We need to hire a sergeant to command these soldiers. And a sergeant, remember, is a first-level fighter. Oh, wait a second. If you are a first-level fighter, you don't need to hire a sergeant, and that's important. because sergeants cost 10 times as much as the regular soldier. If I want to buy 5 soldiers and a sergeant, not only do I have to lay out the 7 gold pieces for the sergeant's equipment, I'm going to need to pay 60 gold pieces for those 3 months worth of hiring, okay, his little tour. So we've just doubled the cost unless we have the ability to act as a sergeant ourselves. A sergeant is required. All sergeants are first level fighters. Now bear in mind, it does say here, they are incapable of progressing further. Again, this is hireling, not PC. If your player character, your fighter, your veteran, fresh out of the ranks, wants to hire on 5 of his buddies to help him adventure, he's got 3 months of service. And not only that, but he's got like 5 gold pieces left over for, maybe bonuses for heroic behavior. Now, this is powerful stuff because although it's not the 35 attack rolls that I teased you with before, it does represent 5 attack rolls every round. It represents between 20 and 35 extra hit points at the first level. Now, some of the naysayers will say, nay. That's why we call them naysayers. In point of fact, this is the most elegant solution to this problem that we've seen to date. Second edition didn't really worry about that. Third edition tried to solve this by making wizards more powerful at first level, but all that did is it changed the progression to this to where magic users were always ahead of fighters. Fourth edition tried to solve this conundrum by making everybody spellcasters. They just changed some of the spells to stab with your sword. And fifth edition tried to solve this by, I'm just kidding, I don't care. The point is, you can dramatically increase the power of your fighter right out of the gate from square one. And this is great because, as I mentioned earlier, this has powerful effects on the long run. Remember that when most people talk about the domain game, when they talk about establishing your kingdom as a fighter, they are talking about making name level. Because they look at this, when I make level 9, then suddenly I will get, and that's up here, the benefits of a paladin, here we are, automatically attract a body of men-at-arms led by an above-average fighter, and that information is contained back in the DMG. This is pretty powerful stuff. At 9th level, roll once for leader type, and you could get a 5th, 6th, or 7th level fighter. Now, this would be rated as a captain, and we'll talk about what that means as far as ratios go in a little bit. And then roll again. 12 light cavalry, that's huge. Cavalry are very expensive. This is a huge cash bonus, but most people take a look at this and say, boy, I sure can't wait to 9th level, to which I respond, yeah, you don't have to. You can start building towards this. This is just a bonus to something that you should be pursuing from day one. And here's where we circle back around to all of the different ways that following the rules helps drive a narrative. By putting the rules first, we will be able to organically develop our domain starting from square one. Remember, we started out with our 5 bros, okay? Our 5 0th level spear carriers. Over the course of achieving our 2nd level, these guys are going to gain experience as well. And they can be promoted to 1st level. There may be rules, I can't remember off the top of my head, but the point is that when you start out with just 5 friends, you only have to track the 5 guys. So you may wind up giving them some names. One of these guys fails his morale checks all the time, and you have to go fish him out of the, drag him back into the cave. We'll call him Shifty. One of these guys is really steady, so we're going to call him Stump. Okay? Mr. Stump never breaks. And one of these guys is really good. He tends to always roll max damage on his spear. Look at that. I now have some characters. And as I level up, I can drag these guys with me. These 3 0-level guys, when I am ready to hire more troops, are going to be able to form the sergeants for my new and improved 30 spears. Which, again, if we run the numbers, it only costs 5, 6, 7 gold to outfit these guys. If I've got 210 gold pieces, I can kit them out. And if I've got another, well, let's see, there's 30 of them. Remember, it's 2 gold a month. And then, so that's going to be plus 60 gold pieces a month. Well, hey, if I've got 400 gold pieces, I've got these guys for a 3-month tour. And here's where we get into the question of, you have to spend gold to make gold. More to the point, let's suppose that you actually do get that big haul. 2,000 gold pieces. And most people think, well, the first thing I need to do is get plate mail. And, they get all the best stuff for their character. They're thinking about this in video game terms. They're thinking about it in Diablo 2 terms. Au contraire, you should be thinking about this in wargame terms. Because now that I've got 30 guys, this opens up a world of possibilities. And I don't need to name these 30 guys, mind you. Right? That's worrying about the names and personalities of each 10 guys of my new 30 spearmen. That's Shifty, Stumpy, and Pokey's job. Right? That's what I pay them for. They can never achieve anything higher than sergeant. Well, kind of. A sergeant that is acting as a sergeant doesn't gain experience points. But that doesn't mean that I can't hire a couple of other sergeants and use these 3 as kind of my own little mini adventuring party. I can be the patron, and I can send these guys out. Hey, you know what, you 3? I need you to go scout the goblin camp. If you do that, then I'll pay you 100 gold. And oh, by the way, that's 100 experience points for you. I just spent 300 gold to get valuable information on my potential enemies, right? Because we started these 3 guys out with us at 0th level, we are now forming a narrative from the ground up. And here's where things get even more interesting. Let us assume that we have the standard 30-mile hex that we have been exploring, and we've been fighting monsters. And here's our home city. All right, down here, and up here we find, hey, you know what? There's a big hill that is a bend in the river goes around that hill. And I really like that hill. And I'm 3rd level, and I've got that 5,000 gold pieces. Now, this is a 30-mile hike through once dangerous land. You know what I can do? I have been walking this path. Maybe I beat up some ogres who lived under this hill. There's a dungeon under the hill. So I hire some guys. Hey, why don't you come on out here? This is a 2-day journey. I'm going to hire you for a month. It's 2 days out. I've got 10 spearmen to protect you, craftsmen, while you come out. And I'll hire some woodcutters. They'll cut the trees down. I'll hire some masons. They'll brick up the dungeon. Although they'll survey it first, because I'm going to take advantage of that dungeon when I take this hill and I clear cut all the trees, and I use that to build myself a little wooden palisade. I mean, up to this point, me and my 3 friends, and maybe 30 of them, have been camped out here. But now I've got a palisade. I'm much more defensible. Now I can start stretching out my legs into this hex and this hex. And I can go back to the Lord of the Manor down here in Civilization and say, you know what? If I can clear everything north and west of this river, I'm going to make my own little barony. Is that okay? And he says, yeah, sure. Maybe he even gives me some seed money. After all, having an ally on his northwest border is far preferable to him than having that nasty goblin camp, right? So here's goblins, and we've been kind of skirmishing with them. Maybe I kill some owlbears and I take 50 pounds of owlbear meat to the goblins and say, hey, do not attack the road. Anybody that's, a half a mile off the road is open game. But I'm telling you right now, if I hear about goblins sacking any of my craftsmen, I'm going to come over here with my 30 bros. Although, if I have enough money to build a palisade, maybe I'm now up to the point that I've got 100 bros, okay? And we'll talk about what that means here in a minute. Look at that. Now we've got some politics going on. I'm paying the goblins under the table not to attack the road, whereas my patron down here thought that I was going to be stomping on the goblins. Well, hey, the goblins are not a threat. They're not attacking the caravans. And maybe my patron down here is okay with that. Hey, look at that. You organically develop some political intrigue that happens outside of the dungeon delves. I get a little bit more money. And if I'm thinking about this, so let's look at our little hill here. And here's the hill. And I've got a little higher hill over here where I built my little wooden palisade. Maybe I extend my palisade down here. Maybe I go ahead and save that. I'm going to build my wooden palisade here. I'll build one watchtower here. But after a while, I've got enough money that I can now turn to a new page in the Dungeon Master's Guide. And that's this section here, Construction and Siege. Construction time. All of these little things that you can buy. I remember when I was a young man and I was playing this game during my school days, back when I wore the short pants, I would design a castle and then I'd try to just figure out how much that castle cost to build. Or I would take these and I would add a little to the castle. Oh, okay, so it's going to cost me, what is this? A wood, where is it? The Barbican is going to be 4,000 gold pieces. And what else do we have here? What's the big ticket items? A curtain wall every 20 feet, 100 feet is 1,000 gold pieces. Well, you don't have to start with a full crack de chevalier plan. All you need to do is plan ahead and think about it in stages. I am not going to start out with 500 soldiers. I am going to start out with a simple wooden palisade, maybe a gate right here, and that's it. And then I decided, well, I want to upgrade. So what I'll do is I'll build my gatehouse right here. And I know that's a little weird, right? So now I can get rid of this palisade and I can build my gate. And now I've got a stone gatehouse for my wooden keep. Except, you know what else I can do? I can then build another tower over here, or I can build my main keep proper, and now I've got supporting fields of fire. Maybe I build one curtain wall to link those two for now, or just a small little courtyard, and then I build a couple of towers out here, and I add a wall. And now look at that. Over time, suddenly I will wind up with my great big honkin' castle, one bite at a time. How do you eat the elephant? One bite at a time. So here's our nice castle that by the time we hit 9th level and we get that sudden influx of huge followers, we're ready for them. We've already got it built. We've already taken the time. We don't have to say, hey, sorry guys, do you mind waiting? Take a look. Here's for wooden construction. A moat house is a year and a couple of months. Right? The Barbican, where's time? Stone construction, take about 1 week per 10 cubic foot section. So but you can hire multiple guys. So the other thing to be aware of is that when you are still at this point in the process and you're hauling everything you need back and forth, there's going to be some malcontents over here that are not happy with the Lord of the Manor. Maybe they're from deeper in the Empire. Maybe they're, not ideal citizens, but they have some farming skill. And they say, hey, I noticed that you've got 30 guys that need to eat, and I noticed you've got some unused land over here. Would you mind if I just built a little house down here at the bottom of the hill and put a few little farm fields down here? And you might think, oh yeah, you know what? That's a great idea. Now I don't have to transport food all the time. I have a couple of 5 or 6 farmers, and these farmers, just as our sergeants laid the seeds of the tree that would become our fighting forces, these farmers will lay the seeds of the future nobility, the guys that have the choice property values right next to the inner citadel of what we hope will one day be, we got to build a city wall now because we've got hundreds of people in there. Hundreds of people that have flocked to our banner, and look at that. Over time, we naturally and organically have built our domain. Not waiting until name level, not waiting until 9th level, not holding off on the good stuff until the end, starting to build it from day one. Now, you're still going out into the dungeons, you're still patrolling for goblins, and you're still doing all the normal things that you do. The only difference is that instead of saving this and doing it all in one big lump sum later, instead of developing all of this ex nihilo, you are using the terrain that is given to you. Kind of like in real life. This adds verisimilitude to your campaign building and to your domain because you have to use the land that comes to you. And because you are using, you're using the resources that you've got. Hey, guess what? We're on a hill. That's going to inform the kind of, trappings that you use to describe yourself. Again, going back to Brain Leakage, he's running games for high school students, and one of his high school students has decided that he's going to go real cheap on his first 5 bros. He said, you know what? If I just buy padded armor and buy a club for them, that's only like a gold piece. So he bought 5 guys, I think it was like 10 guys with a club and padded armor. And then he gave them face paint. And I don't know whether it was meme magic that introduced these kids to the film The Warriors, or if it was Brain Leakage himself. Dan is his first name. But he said, you know what you just did? You just built the baseball furies from the cult classic film The Warriors. Remember the gang trying to make it to Coney Island? The baseball furies. Clubs, padded armor, borrowing themes from our favorite media, right? It's a natural and organic expression. If you have the good fortune of having a seaside hex, this may be a port city that you are building, and your theme will revolve around, hey, you know what? My knights, my light knights, my really fast guys, they're the dolphins. Right? Maybe it's on the west side. Maybe this hill has a really good view of the sunset. So I'm going to use like a sundown theme for one of my units. Because we're on top of the hill and remember this was an ogre camp. So maybe I'm going to call one of my units, my heavy foot, they're going to be the ogre pounders, right? The events that occur throughout the course of your campaign will inspire you to develop these forces. And instead of having to name your 100 guys, you're not going to name all 100 of them, but you're going to say, you know what, these are the red ogres. I'm going to buy them red helmets. And we're going to use the story of that time that we cleared off the hill of the ogres, the little dungeon under the hill. Hey, I hired some dwarves to dig a shaft down into that dungeon so I have an escape route, right? I hired them to build me some secret doors, and we expanded the dungeons for more storage rates. It was free construction. It's free real estate. There's some meme magic for you. But I wanted to talk to you about the ratios just one more time, kind of before we close out. Because sometimes, again, if you try to build a company right out of the gate, the ratios get a little bit complicated. They're really not that hard, okay? So watch this as I do this. I just reviewed this today, but it's really not that hard. You're going to need a captain. And a captain, this is where it starts. For every captain, you can have a score of troops per level. And remember, this is 5th to 8th level, okay? And this is your captain times 20 troops. So a 5th level captain can command our 100 bros. When exactly do you need to buy a captain? You know, I'm not really sure. Stick a pin in that. We're going to circle back around to it. But let's just say we've hired a level 5 captain. We now have 100 troops. For every 100 troops, we need a captain. That's pretty simple. And for every 10 troops, every 5 to 10, I mean, you can spend more money on more sergeants if you want, but you don't have to, right? And it's really easy to say, you know what, 10 guys plus 1 sergeant. And oh, by the way, from a wargaming perspective, that's 1 figure. So our captain, who is commanding 100 guys, he's going to be able to command 100 figures at the 10-to-1 ratio. And now we're thinking like wargamers. These lieutenants are easy because they cost 10 gold pieces per level. And remember, we said these are 2nd to 3rd level. And for every level, they can command 10 guys as well. This is an adjunct to our maximum. Remember, if we have let's put it this way. If we have an 8th level captain, then we're capped at 160 guys. But if we use lieutenants, they can add to the captain's total. And a captain can command 1 lieutenant for every level that he's got. So again, 20 troops per level for the captain. And if we want to extend that, for every level of the captain, we can buy a lieutenant who can then, if they're 3rd level, add another 30 guys to our maximum level. So if we go ahead and buy 8 lieutenants at 3rd level, that's another 240 guys. And that gives us a maximum troop size of 400 troops. You may not want to do that because you may want to hire different kinds of troops. One of the really sticking points is that you need a captain for each kind of troop. So if I'm going to have light infantry and heavy infantry and light cavalry and heavy cavalry and bowmen, that's 5 different kinds of troops. I need to buy 5 captains. And if all of those captains are 5th level guys, that's 500 gold pieces per month per captain. Just for the captains, I'm laying out 2,500 gold pieces per month. All right. And that's only getting me 500 troops. So I may want to go ahead and invest in some lieutenants to extend that for my 5th level captain, to extend that at a discounted rate. All right. But again, remember, you're not going to add all of these guys at once. First, you're going to start with some heavy foot, And then maybe you say, hey, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go ahead and get myself 10 horses. Okay. Now I need a captain, but if I have the captain and, plus the sergeant, then I can slowly add to this over time. Why else might we run into some troubles? Well, remember that we're way off here in the hinterlands. At second and third level, we haven't really established our name yet. We haven't reached name level. So there may not be enough of these pricey 8th level captains available. Maybe we can only hire 2 captains total. So we got to decide what 2 troop types we want to use. And maybe those kind of troop types become our signature, right? Maybe because we're off in the wilderness, maybe we're primarily a light troop kind of force. That will inform the flavor that we give to our forces. But there's a little bit more than this that you need to be aware of, because remember that these guys, when you are operating from town, you can take advantage of the existing infrastructure. Hey, I've only got 20 guys. You know what? The town is going to have enough additional resources that my blacksmith is going to be able to take care of my guys. And you do need a blacksmith, and you do need an armorer, and you do need, things like cooks. Maybe not for the 20 or 30 guys, maybe not while you're living in town, but eventually when you start building your fort out here, you're going to need a blacksmith. So we can take a look at those hirelings as well. A blacksmith is only 30 gold pieces per month. The first blacksmith that you buy, he can take care of, I think it's 40 men or horses, but each additional blacksmith and his assistants can care for 160 men or horses. Which means with 2 blacksmiths, if I've got 50 guys out here in my fort, 50 guys, I need 2 blacksmiths. That gives me some extra resources that I can farm out to my farmers. Until there's a dozen or so guys out here, villagers that I am protecting, and then there's enough of them that they can get their own blacksmith, right? You guys go ahead, you can support him, you can pay him off, but until then, hey, you guys can take advantage of my blacksmith. Maybe that offsets the cost, or maybe you work out some deal where, you can reduce the monthly salary of your troops. Not really, but essentially instead of shipping the food back and forth, because you can get the food at the discount, there's a little bit of give and take there, at least in the early days. Maybe you can argue with your DM, hey, since I have all of this extra, blacksmithing and I don't know what else. I got a carpenter who's not really doing a whole lot. I'm going to use that to entice the best of the best. I don't just want a bunch of criminals settling my land. Sorry, Aussie bros. Don't take offense at that. Maybe you want a good mix of criminals and regular. Yeah, because I'm sure some Australians are good people. I'm kidding. I love you guys. You guys are the best. You guys hang out in my live streams, which is much appreciated, because the East Coast Americans don't even do that for their American bro. Point being, you may want to get yourself a scribe. They're $15 a month, a weapon maker. You do need to have weapon makers. But all of that stuff will happen gradually over time, and you can just kind of add a little bit at a time. In most campaigns, right, you build a little bit at a time, and you build this story, and eventually over time, you'll be able to tell stories about how you built your own kingdom from the ground up, starting with just a couple of friends, who maybe these guys over time, like I said, you send them out to scout the goblins, you send them out to do a little exploring. You've got your own parties that you send out. And this is really a powerful force multiplier. This is how you make your fighting man grow exponentially in power. It's not just good rule sense. It makes good sense narratively. And hey, one last thought. You know how dungeon masters have the joy of playing Dungeons and Dragons away from the session? The session is over, and he gets to design dungeons. He gets to think about plots and intrigues and what the NPCs are going to get up to, and he gets to stat things out and enjoy himself in what we wargamers sometimes call the domestic wargaming. He gets to play the game on his own in the quiet moments. He gets to think about. Don't you wish you could do that as a player character? Kabow! You can start designing this stuff in downtime. Send your sketch out the hill. Hey, I think the hill looks like this, DM. Does this seem reasonable to you? The DM says, well, yeah. Or maybe the DM has the map of the dungeon, and he says, well, here's, you guys have your map. Here's a map of the hill. Go ahead and start planning out the various building phases. Go ahead and start statting out. Hey, I had to hire a new captain. Can you tell me what level he is? Oh, he's 6th. All right, let me go ahead and, assign a personality to him. Or pester your DM. If he wants to do it, you can give him more work, or you can take that off his plate. You get to have fun away from the session when you play the game the way it was designed. How cool is that? We're solving problems you didn't even realize you had. Think about it next time you decide to play a boring fighter. That maybe if your fighters are boring, it's because you're doing it wrong. Maybe give this game a chance. If you just play this game according to the rules, you will be amazed at all of the new avenues of adventure that open up to you. That's all I've got for you today, friends. Until next time, I'm praying for you.